Hi, I'm Josh Piteo. You're watching The Get Real Show. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to be having a debate between the candidates running for state rep in the 34th district, which is East Hampton and East Haddam. This is going to be like a conversation among the candidates to talk about state issues. We hope you join us tonight for the half hour and we'll get a good idea of what the candidates think and what their positions are. With me tonight are Chris Goff and Melissa Ziobron. Thank you both for being here tonight. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having me.
It's interesting being out there as candidates going door to door. That's one thing that state reps do. They're running for office. You go door to door talking to folks. And what are some of the things that people are telling you when you go talking, when you go knock on their door?
Well, I'll tell you what I'm hearing is, they are very concerned about the economy and jobs, and I hear that over and over again.
What do you hear, Chris?
Yeah, same as Melissa was just talking about. Even just more at the basic level, the awareness of what the new district consists of. They're used to either East Hampton, our current state rep, or East Haddam, and not fully aware of the realigning of the district and what that means for them.
And just to correct you, it also includes part of Colchester. So it's not just East Haddam and East Hampton, but it's a small portion of Colchester.
Okay. Now, you both served in town governments before. You were in East Hampton, Chris, and Melissa, you were in East Haddam.
Yep.
Okay, so you've learned how to deal with both parties, how to be bipartisan.
Well, you have to in a small town. I mean, that's the way you get things done.
Okay, so what happens when you go to Hartford, where it seems very partisan, where the Republicans are on one side, Democrats on the other, and there's not too mixing of the ways. So how do you get around that?
You need to be the one to vocalize. You're there to represent your district, your towns. So you are the voice of 24,000 people, and you need to make it work.
Yeah, and I have experience doing that actually already. When I was Economic Development Coordinator working with Linda Orange, who is technically currently the state rep for East Haddam, we worked on a bill. I had to testify at the Capitol, and you learn quickly that in order to get things done, you have to reach across the aisle, and that's the only way it happens.
So what do you think are the big issues facing the state right now?
Well, I mean, for me, it's really first of all, it's the budget. I sent out a campaign mailer about 3 weeks ago. At that time, our budget deficit was roughly $27 million. Literally yesterday, OPM came out with new numbers. We are now $60.1 million in the red, and it doesn't even match the Office of Fiscal Analysis, which has it at over $90 million. So, we've got to fix our budget. It's really a crisis.
So you see a lot of issues that are
budget,
have to be addressed.
Yeah, and the economy. We need to focus on the businesses we have here in the state, keeping them, retaining them, encouraging them to expand, to create new jobs, as well as attract new business.
So a lot of times you hear about states trying to steal away business from states.
Well, we don't have
competition between states for jobs and businesses.
Well, we have the opposite problem going on in Connecticut. We have an administration who's giving literally $130 million to Bridgewater, which is the biggest hedge fund company in the world, to move probably 15 miles within our own state. Something's wrong with the way we're looking at that. We're giving millions of dollars. I think the latest count was $350 million for the first 5, which turned into the first 9 program. And yet our Small Business Express program has only been funded $100 million for the entire state. So we've got to relook at that.
So who's responsible for that?
Well, that was a governor's initiative, was the first 5 program, and that's where, it's the administration. That's who's pushing those programs forward.
So how do we bring jobs into Connecticut?
Well, part of what Melissa was just speaking at, instead of maybe just giving of the grants and the money, do low-interest loans, so we are getting that money back from these businesses to keep them here.
Well, I was involved in just what Chris is talking about. There's actually an organization that serves Middlesex County called the Middlesex Revitalization Commission. I was a loan officer representing East Haddam, where I secured almost $75,000 for our local businesses through exactly what he just said, which was a loan program at 6%. And we dealt with companies that wouldn't get traditional financing from a bank. And we really looked at a community need for the loan. So there are programs out there, and I think one of the things I'd like to do is make sure that I'm communicating exactly what those programs are to our constituents. I think a lot of times they're just not aware of them.
Yeah.
This education of the of residents and consumers, is that a major thing that state government should be doing?
Yes, communicating.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
what
think we
programs
can-
are there and up and running and available, like Melissa said. People aren't aware of what some of the options are.
And I think it's not just even our town leaders. I mean, I think timing is critical. So if there's something that you can help them do, you have to be communicating. I think on a regular basis with your town leaders, and I don't think that happens right now with our legislators.
What do people want from state government? I mean, if you're going door to door and you're talking to folks at all kinds of meetings. At luncheonettes and diners and restaurants. What do they want from state government?
What I'm seeing, they're tired of the negativity at all different levels. I think what people want is to see government working for them in a positive, productive way.
I would agree with Chris, but I'd also say it's very simple. The people want our government to be honest. They want it to be transparent, accountable, efficient. Those are things that we all strive, I think, to do on our own home and our budgets, and I think the state government should do the same. But I also be frank, there's a lot of people who want the state government to get out of the way. We have a lot of small businesses who say, have put off investment. I can give you a couple examples, but I don't want to take a lot of time. I hear it a lot. They want the government to be honest and accountable.
So they want state government, but they also want it to not be intrusive? Or how would you characterize that? Too many regulations? Is there too many roadblocks for entrepreneurs, or?
Well, there is. I think regulations are important and they serve a purpose. But they also tend to be created in a vacuum without real life experience. For instance, the last person I helped was a person who wanted to have an organic hot dog cart. And the regulations at the Chatham Health District were so intrusive, she couldn't even make homemade relish from a local farm stand because it was an organic ingredient that didn't come from an actual company. And those are the things that you just make you scratch your head. That made her put off her business for a month right in the summer season, which made her to be not successful as a small business.
But that example in itself is a prime opportunity to make government or have government work for the people.
Yeah, you have
to make those changes and accommodate what the need is.
So you have to be nimble. And is government nimble?
No.
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 Okay. So
It's a slow moving. I had a developer once tell me when they were looking at investing in a very large project in East Haddam that sometimes working with local authorities and the state is watching paint dry. And that's the attitude we have to change.
Yes.
We have to get developers to know that they have a deadline, they have a set of parameters, and if they meet those parameters, they can go forward with a project. But when you constantly change the playing field or what's expected of them.
it's called goalpost.
Correct. You change that goalpost, and you have to wonder why those businesses are waiting. I mean, the recession is causing a lot of businesses a wait-and-see sort of attitude.
So what does state government do well, and what would you say state government doesn't do well and needs a lot of help with? Is there some issue that you say, state's doing a good job with that?
I think so. I mean, you look at, for instance, our state police, our state trooper, resident trooper program. In East Hampton, they have a police force, but in East Haddam and Colchester, we rely on Troop K. And when you look at their K-9 services, their major crime squad, developing relationships with community members and business members. Our resident state trooper works well. I'm concerned, though, there's been a lot of talk about consolidation of our Troop K, and that's a concern that I would have for constituents. What we don't do good is exactly what I just pointed out regarding our economic incentive program, where we're giving millions of dollars to companies that are moving 15 miles, or we're giving millions of dollars to companies like Jackson Labs and then not following through with what they're creating for jobs.
What do you think about that?
Having worked in a couple different state agencies, I think doing well. I see firsthand, especially with DCF, and services that are provided, as well as the mental health department. Outstanding job at what we do for these people. In the same hand, there are certain services that are overlapping or not producing, and they need to be reviewed or eliminated if possible if they're not working.
But when you say those things, those are like jobs. A lot of people say there's this divide between if there's government is too much out there in regulating, and you want to get rid of this regulation, then you're also getting rid of government jobs. And that's something legislators don't like to do. We've seen this, but you have to. Does it have to be done?
I don't think it has to be. If you're combining resources or merging certain departments that are working on the same project or same goal, then they should be able to do it collaboratively to get. So I don't think you necessarily have to eliminate positions or jobs to get the job done.
I think you need to be realistic, and I think the reality is we have a bloated state government, and we have spending that's projected to be $434 million in the red for the 2013-2014 budget cycle. I don't know how you solve that without raising additional taxes, and that's something I'm not prepared to do. We just had a $1.8 billion tax increase, and we need to look at cutting spending. And I'm not saying that we need across-the-board spending cuts. What I'm saying is we need to review, and we need to be prepared to make the tough decisions. We have been kicking the can on these decisions even when we had a Republican governor. And what I'm saying is enough is enough. We've got to make the tough decisions, and I'm ready to do that with community input, and that's why communication is so important.
That's interesting, because the governor did have, was it a $1.8 or $1.6 billion tax increase last year, and we have a deficit this year. What if the governor comes by next year, next legislative session, and says, we have to raise taxes again? How would you guys handle that?
Well,
You have to look at first, what steps did he take before making that decision? What was reviewed? What departments, line items? I'm sure there's, and I know there's other ways to reduce spending without going right to tax increase to get that revenue.
well, that's what the governor promised us last time, and he didn't do that. I mean, he promised us he was going to look at cutting spending, but we immediately heard about raising taxes. I think, that's one area that I wish I'd see some fiscal conservative Democrats stand up and talk about the budget crisis. I just don't see that at this point.
You saw during the last budget, there was loggerheads between public employees unions and the governor's office. And there was a lot of friction there. And they, at the end of the day, they came together and they held hands and they made a deal. Do you think state workers are going to want to make another deal if there's more concessions? Or how does the legislature deal with this now?
Well, you can't do any. Your hands are tied, first of all, right now. The deal the governor made locked employees with no cuts, no nothing for 4 years.
There was no raises for 2 years?
Yeah.
And no elimination of jobs,
yeah.
Nothing. I mean, you literally tied the hands of the negotiators.
Except the fact that unions always have the option, if they are willing to, go back into renegotiate.
That's not going to
unions.
happen.
And that's happened in East Hampton. We've had that.
That's not
with
going
our
to happen
teachers.
at the state level. It's not going to happen at the state level. And
I think there's the common sense people out there that know the crisis we're in, and I think if it came down to, jobs, they're going to be willing to go into renegotiate and look at different options.
Well, I'm hopeful that what Chris is saying is true. But you know, the fact of the matter is, the governor reached the deal he made, including things like $200 million in employee cost savings potentials with the employee suggestion box. I mean, we put all these things out there and they don't materialize. I think that we need to look at cutting spending. Why do we have to constantly look at other things? We need to start with our own fiscal house. That's the only way